Here we go.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding
What's up, Chris?
Games. Thanks for joining us for today's live stream as we unveil Path of Exile Crucible, which launches on April 7th on PC and Mac, and on April 12th
Let's
on
do it,
console.
brother.
Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Sphinx wings. Speaking of live streams, this is our last dedicated Path of Exile 1 announcement stream for around 6 months. That's because our 322 expansion announcement will occur during the ExileCon livestream in late July. Set yourself a reminder to tune in, because we'll also be unveiling massive amounts of information about Path. Here's what you can expect. We'll start with a trailer for Crucible, followed by a deep dive on the League itself. Then we'll cover this expansion's endgame improvements, including the introduction of Atlas gateways and revamps to both Breach and Abyss leagues. We'll discuss changes to Path of Exile's balance metagame, including changes to the passive skill tree, its masteries, an overhaul of the Saboteur and Pathfinder Ascendancy classes, 9 powerful new VAAL skills, and some of the new unique items you can build around. After that, we'll cover improvements to the Ruthless game mode and the League launch boss kill event, before diving into the new Supporter Pack series. The livestream will then conclude with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer questions from Twitch chat.
We haven't
After
eaten
the
the whole
live stream,
stream.
we'll drop the full
We've been
patch
streaming
notes.
for like 9 hours.
Let's get started with the trailer for Path of Exile
All right.
Crucible.
Come on, Chris.
Hail, one of many. Eons ago, my kind walked the molten surface of this world. Now, we seek a champion. You must endure the heat of the Crucible. To forge weapons unlike any Rayclast has ever seen.
Those are things I understand.
Take up the power of the Titans.
They do not like artifact weapons.
Obliteration.
Yo, if they've made it so it's just simple and easily modifiable, I'm so on board. Without it being like overly complex and drawing little maps and stuff like that, if it's like, hey, slot in the stuff that makes sense and it's nice and obvious, give me that every day of the week. Yeah, very much like Diablo, Pixie. It's super fun.
In Path of Exile Crucible, you'll learn about an ancient race of titans who once shaped the primordial surface of Rayclast. In this league, you will earn the ability to forge their power onto your weapons. And what form does that power take? In an iconically Path of Exile way, it's the ability to imbue your weapons with their own passive skill trees.
How do you
These
generate
Crucible
the
trees can have quite an impact on your character build. For example, in addition to the regular mods on this bow, its Crucible tree
not
grants
paid to win,
additional
no.
physical damage, physical to
Completely
chaos
free, actually.
conversion, the Master Fletcher notable passive, improved grace effect, and level 10 lesser multiple projectiles. While this is certainly a decent tree to get, it's not even the maximum depth and could be even more optimized for your build. In order to forge these powerful trees onto your weapons, you'll need to complete Crucible encounters. There's one in each area. Each encounter takes place at a Crucible forge. As you approach the forge, you'll have the choice of which of your equipped weapons you want to focus on. This can include ones on your alternate weapon swap if you want to improve one you're not currently using. After selecting a weapon, you channel it at the Crucible forge to spawn monsters. The longer you channel for, the more dangerous and rewarding the encounter becomes.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
As you spawn additional monsters,
As if you're
they
not going to
combine
max
together
it, though.
to create larger and more fearsome foes that grant even more experience for your Crucible passive tree. Being able to ramp up the difficulty of the encounters is a double-edged sword. While it gives you the opportunity to make rapid progress on your Crucible weapon crafting projects, it comes with significant risks to your character. It's easy to accidentally overwhelm yourself and make an encounter that is too dangerous.
Fuck it.
Channel carefully and adapt to what your character is capable
As if you're not going the whole way.
When you first find a weapon, it doesn't have a Crucible tree unlocked. Channeling that weapon at Crucible encounters will unlock and reveal its tree, as well as allocating
I bet the trees
first
are RNG
skill.
then, right?
You can only allocate one skill at each tree depth, so you'll need to decide which path through the tree is best for your build. As you get deeper into a tree, more and more experience is required to unlock skills. The final depths can take quite an investment and can only be found rarely on endgame items, but also have some of the most powerful properties. For example, this wand has 2 depth 5 skills to choose from. One of them allows all damage from your Freezing Pulse and Eye of Winter skills to poison, and the other allows various brands to be attached to your Summoned Reaper. There are many such modifiers to skills that will enable very interesting build combinations. In addition to all types of weapons, shields can also be empowered with their own Crucible trees. Here's a relatively simple, low-level example. It gets a bit crazier as you approach the endgame. Speaking of the endgame, in endgame Crucible encounters, you'll occasionally find igneous geodes, currency items that can be cracked open to reveal a primeval remnant. This is a map-like item that grants access to the Forge of the Titans, the culmination of your Crucible journey. These primeval remnants always generate as rare items. Half of their mods are upsides and half are downsides. The upsides generally increase the rewards of the area or add special crafting options. For example, causing monsters to drop divination cards or magmatic ore, a form of tradable itemized Crucible tree experience.
You can
The
buy
downsides
experience.
are quite punitive compared to most in-game maps. Ideally, you want to find a primeval remnant that is really rewarding upsides alongside downsides you can handle. If you don't think you'll survive a visit to the Forge of the Titans, trade the remnant away to someone else and gamble on cracking open another geode. If you survive and manage to reach the end of the area, you'll find the aforementioned Forge, which allows you to merge Crucible trees on 2 items together. The way this process works is that you provide 2 items of the same class. For example, a pair of bows, a pair of shields, or a pair of one-hand axes. One of these items will be melted down and applied to the other, which will keep its regular properties. Their Crucible trees will be merged together in an unpredictable way, taking elements of each
so
one.
you could get you
This
could
is a
try and
little
get a
reminiscent
best
of how
one.
recombinators applied to item mods, taking parts
Yeah,
of each
you can
Crucible
really
tree and
fish
merging
for
them
like a
together,
super
as well as
best
randomly
weapon.
upgrading, downgrading, or mutating skills on the
It
resulting
also
tree.
means if you get a shit weapon but it's got a good Crucible
While this
tree,
process
it's
can
worth
create some
keeping.
really powerful trees if you get skills you wanted from both items, it can also completely wreck your precious trees. So take care choosing which you
You
risk
can also
combining.
just brick it completely.
Also, like recombinators, there are ways to manipulate the system to improve your odds at getting certain outcomes. For example, any skills that have been allocated are more likely to show up in the resultant Crucible tree.
Interesting.
By default, you can only add Crucible trees to non-unique items, but it's possible to get a mod on the Forge of the Titans map that allows you to imbue a unique item with a Crucible tree, which can then be leveled up via regular Crucible encounters. To combine Crucible trees on unique items together, you'll want to find a crystalline geode and crack it open to reveal the secret higher level version of the Forge of the Titans. I probably shouldn't say too much about it, but it will let you do some interesting things with
That
Crucible
means you can
trees.
do some really silly things.
There's an important thing to note about Crucible trees on unique weapons. In addition to being much harder to unlock, there's a special rule about how they can be combined. A unique weapon must be combined with another copy of the same unique weapon to merge their trees together. Because this destroys one copy, getting a good Crucible tree on a unique weapon makes it insanely valuable. It may also raise the trade value of all unique weapons by quite a lot, as players sacrifice them trying to create perfect Crucible trees.
That's a good way of making uniques more interesting, for sure.
Occasionally, you'll find a Crucible passive skill tree with a special skill that indicates that the item will sell to vendors for a specific item in addition to its regular sale price. These vendor skills usually occur relatively deeply in the tree, so take some effort to allocate, but usually don't block skill choices you'd make when leveling the item up for use. The presence of these skills presents you with an interesting choice about whether you want to use the item or sell it to a vendor, and whether you want to spend your Crucible experience either revealing new trees to hunt for good skills, leveling up items to use, or leveling up items to sell. Crucible also features its own unique items you can earn. For example, El Abin's Visage, a unique helmet, is special in that it's the only armor piece other than shields that can receive Crucible passive skill trees. Wearing it allows you to double down on certain properties that are only available through these trees. There are several other unique items exclusive to Crucible for you to discover in this league. Crucible is a dual combat crafting league with a focus on encounter difficulty scaling and deep weapon customization with a power level that we have never seen before. Without a doubt, some of Path of Exile's most powerful weapons will be forged in Crucible.
Oh,
We
there's
can't
going
wait
to be
see
some
what you
really
manage to
silly
create.
items getting crafted out of this.
Like all recent Path of Exile expansions, Crucible includes a lot of changes with the goal of improving Path of Exile's endgame. One area we wanted to address was mobility on the Atlas passive tree. Often, you'll find yourself in a situation where you want to specialize in leagues that are on entirely different sides of the Atlas tree. Or maybe you want to focus on the type of altar that isn't near the leagues you have picked. To solve this, Path of Exile Crucible introduces Atlas gateways. These are nodes that you can allocate on the Atlas tree that allow instant travel between two locations. There are 3 pairs of gateways, each allowing travel from the left side of the tree to the right side, or vice
I am
versa.
not brainy enough to figure out
Each
the
end of the
potential
gateway
this.
consumes 1 Atlas skill point to allocate, but will potentially save you large
Yeah.
amounts of travel points. In this expansion, we're targeting a couple of endgame leagues that have fallen behind other leagues
That
on the
saves
Atlas
a
tree.
lot of points.
Let's start with Breach. In the live version of Path of Exile, there are 5 tiers of Breach Stone. In Path of Exile Crucible, we're raising the area levels of Breach Stones to a much higher baseline level. 81 for elemental ones, 82 for physical, and 83 for chaos. Now that the regular Breach Stones are much higher level, we have retired charged, enriched, and pure Breach Stones. They will be converted to regular ones. We have also changed how flawless Breach Stones are acquired. Previously, you could only get them from Maven invitations, but we prefer access to the hardest Breach content to actually come from playing Breach. Now there are 2 ways to get flawless Breach Stones, through Blessings, which are now rarer as a result, and through a skill on the Atlas tree.
Interesting.
We've also improved the pacing of Breach encounters. Previously, Breaches felt pretty good early on, but quickly tapered off in density to the point where you wanted to abandon the Breach because it just felt like not enough monsters were spawning. Our changes now keep Breaches feeling dense throughout, leaning more on the side of it feeling overwhelming towards the end of the Breach. We have also reduced the duration of Breaches so there is constant monster pressure and you can get on with your mapping sooner. There are a whole bunch of other Breach changes that you can read about in the patch notes, such as changes to the Betrayal Research Safe House, Breach Scarabs,
Any
Breach
downside in
Stones from Kirit
PoE
missions,
just
the Breach Harvest crafting option, the Fragment
worth,
Stash
right?
tab, Divination cards, Breach
if
unique
you got
items, Atlas
downtime,
passives, and so on.
that's not the game doing its job.
We're also revamping Abyss in a similar way. Abyssal Depths now always contain an Abyssal Lich. Previously, the prevailing gameplay was to check the loading screen art of an Abyssal Depths to see if it contained a Lich, and bail out if it didn't. Now, the Depths always contain a Lich, removing the need for this step. While the rate of encountering Abyssal Liches is unchanged, Abyssal Depths are rarer than before. However, Abysses now have a chance to spawn a Stygian Spire in place of their reward chest, which will drop all of the jewels and other items you'd normally receive, as well as a Stygian Vice. In addition, you're guaranteed to always get a 4-hole Abyss alongside your Abyssal Depths. Previously, Abyssal Depths could only spawn immediately after a single Abyssal hole, which prevented you from getting full value from the Abyss. The Lightless Legion notable passive has been replaced with a new skill which grants Stygian Spires in your maps drop items with +1 to item level. This is intended to allow players to continue to be able to obtain item level 86 Stygian Vices and other base types as a reward for specializing in Abyss. The small passives leading up to this notable passive have also been replaced. We've
Abyss
done a
was one of my
balanced pass on
favorites. I
Abyssal
like
Lich
Abyss a
encounters
lot.
to make them more appropriately difficult relative to the current standard of endgame encounters. Abyss uniques have had some balance attention also, and the details are in the patch notes. Overall, these changes should ensure you can play a wider variety of leagues in
Ooh,
the
what
endgame,
build's that?
both through being able to access them more easily and because Breach and Abyss now feel far more modern and competitive with other popular
Chris is
league
about to say
content.
they've reworked Flicker so it goes even faster.
A big goal of the Crucible expansion is to provide a lot of new ways to build characters and to breathe new life into older builds.
To achieve this, we're doing 2 things. Firstly, we have created many more interesting options for one of Path of Exile's core build systems, the passive skill tree, by overhauling many of its masteries. Secondly, we have revamped 2 specific Ascendancy classes. As we reviewed the masteries on Path of Exile's passive skill tree, we realized that a lot of the choices were rather bland and could be a lot more exciting. We went through the masteries one by one and tried to come up with as many interesting stats as we could.
I don't like
ignoring
this
what was
guy's
currently
attitude,
there.
honestly. He's not thinking
Once we had
about
a
how
short
to
list of
hinder
high-quality
players more.
stats, we added in the existing
the
ones that
affixes?
used to be on each mastery and picked the 6 best. All
Too
of the
much focus
leftover
on
ones have
fun.
been saved for later or used in places like unique items. This process was performed on approximately half of the masteries on the tree, initially targeting the ones that needed the attention the most. Previously, some masteries only had 4 options, so we've tried to increase as many as possible to 6 options. We've also added a couple of new mastery types that we felt
I don't
were
think
missing.
any company pumps content
Let's
out
look at
like
an
Grinding
example,
Gear does.
the life mastery
Unbelievable
choices.
what they do every
You
season.
can see some of the interesting new options, such as the ability to manipulate your low life and full life
Oh!
thresholds, which allows you to more effectively use the damage while on full life support gem and many
Oh,
unique
cool.
items. Getting a large increase to maximum life when you have no life on your body armor not only works really well with a whole lot of unique items, but also
Oh,
opens up
awesome.
new prefix composition options for rare body armor.
Yeah, I'm sick of like no
Here you
life,
can see
no
the
good.
armor and energy
So
shield mastery
annoying.
has more options available than before. The other thing we focused on with this one is tying the mechanics together better. Instead of some being about armor and some being about energy shield, we've tried to make sure each really emphasizes having both armor and energy shield. On the Leech Mastery, we've combined the 3 increased life mana and energy shield recovery stats into one choice that affects
No
all of
shit.
them. The space we've freed up has been used to add some powerful new options, such as a portion of your Leech applying instantly. The Spell Suppression Mastery also has many interesting options. Your chance to suppress spell damage becoming lucky is extremely useful before you've optimized your gear and haven't reached 100% yet. The third option rewards you for stacking more than 100% spell suppression, which previously had few benefits. Now it's something you can plan your itemization around. While looking at masteries, we noted that there were some mechanics that didn't have enough passive tree support, so we decided to add some more options and passive skill choices for those mechanics. We also wanted to grant more access to certain types of masteries in specific parts of the passive skill tree. For example, in order to allow more access to the attack mastery, we've added an attack cluster by the Templar and one between the Ranger and Shadow.
Can you imagine being in charge of the skill tree?
We wanted to create more access to other forms of recovery such as regen and recoup, so we've added some new passive skill clusters. Note that there is now a new mastery called Recovery. We've also added more capacity for investment in certain mechanics that we felt could be improved, such as link skills, stun mitigation, and marks. These mastery improvements and passive tree changes are just some of the ones introduced in Path of Exile Crucible. We look forward to your feedback on the rest when you check out the passive skill tree next week.
Going to be in the US next year, Isaac, for the
While
Total
going through
Eclipse.
Ascendancy classes, we identified 2 that needed
in
work,
April, I think
the
it is.
Saboteur and the Pathfinder. Both have been significantly changed in Path of Exile Crucible. These changes reinforce their respective identities while adding some new options to build around. The Saboteur is definitely the Ascendancy class most aligned with traps and mines.
I haven't played
but
this
the old
yet.
version of the Saboteur made it difficult to play anything but traps or mines. The new version has more builds available, including a whole new specialization, Triggers.
Triggers.
There are 2 notable passives that help with this. Like Clockwork grants you the increased cooldown recovery rate stat, which is a pretty rare one. This is great for triggered spells as it indirectly increases their damage. This notable also makes your enemies have longer cooldowns, which can be useful in certain boss fights, for example causing the Maven's memory game to occur less often. The Perfect Crime notable passive summons 2 trigger bots, which override the location of where a triggered spell is being cast, and instead causes it to trigger twice, once from each of their locations.
Oh, we might have to give that
The
a
layout
blast,
for
you
the
know.
Saboteur's trap
We
and
might have
mine
to give it a
ascendancy
blast.
passives has changed, so that there aren't separate 4-pointers for traps and mines. Now each one has a 2-pointer that is connected to the same shared 4-pointer. We have also completely reworked Bomb Specialist to be specifically tied to area damage, so it's a
50%
slightly
more
general
AoE
skill.
damage.
It both gives you some area damage as well as some defense against incoming area damage against you. The Pathfinder has been overdue for some attention, especially with recent features such as concoction skills that she could get the ability to specialize in. We also wanted the Flask-themed Ascendancy to have a proactive way of improving Life Flask usage. Master Distiller allows you to turn most of your skills into concoction-like effects. Master Surgeon now effectively gives all of your Life Flasks the Enduring effect,
Oh, sweet.
previously only found on Mana Flasks. Finally, both of the major Flask-themed branches now have some form of Flask Charge recovery. There are other improvements to the Pathfinder Ascendancy, such as Nature's Reprisal, now interacting with Wither to improve all forms of your Chaos damage, rather than just attack forms of it. Check out the full details in the patch notes that we'll be posting after the livestream.
I don't know whether to try out the Demolitionist. That
Path
sounds
of
like it
Exile
might be up
Crucible
my street.
introduces 9 new VAAL skills. Last
Blow the
expansion,
hell out
there
of
was
the
an
place.
emphasis on melee VAAL skills. In Crucible, we're making sure that many other types of builds get new skills to build around. VAAL skills let us introduce quite powerful effects that we couldn't normally give to a regular skill that can be used constantly. They also implicitly
Well,
act as a
I don't
buff
even
to
know
the
what they're
underlying
planning.
skill.
I've got an interview with Chris Wilson. that
VAAL
I've got to do at
Absolution
some
upgrades
point.
one of your
I can sit
Sentinels
down
of
with him.
Absolution into an Apparition of Innocence.
But
You can only have one apparition at once.
what have they got
but
in
just
mind for
check out these
PoE
massive
2?
AoE
That's
skills
what I'm
it uses.
interested in.
VAAL Arctic Armor instantly encases you in ice, preventing non-instant actions including movement, but granting massive damage reduction against
Ooh,
hits.
that sounds like something.
After a short duration, it also starts to regenerate your energy shield and mana at a fast rate. Both the damage reduction and regeneration last for a few seconds, or until you have been hit 3 times. It cannot be manually cancelled. Because the skill is instant, it's a great emergency button against dangerous boss slams. It also makes you count as being frozen, despite Arctic Armor normally making you freeze immune. Having another way to self-freeze may be of interest to a few mad scientist build creators in the community. VAAL Lightning Arrow fires a barrage of piercing projectiles that cause lightning to strike nearby targets whenever they hit an enemy.
I like that as well.
After a short amount of time, or when they collide with terrain, their arrows randomly change direction and continue flying. This occurs a number of times before the arrows expire.
Oh, I like that as well.
Each arrow can hit the same target
really
once
fun.
per redirect. Because the arrows travel for a set time before redirecting, rather than a set distance, projectile speed modifiers affect the distance traveled. High projectile speed lets you clear out huge areas with them, while reducing your projectile speed increases the chance of them hitting the same target multiple times. With very low projectile speed, the skill can hit a single target 20 plus times. VAAL Reap conjures a ring of scythes that deal damage to all enemies in a circular
like
area.
that as well.
The scythes leave behind a pool of blood that deals heavy physical damage over time to enemies standing in it, and for a short duration after they leave it. VAAL Reap instantly grants a large number of the blood charges used by normal Reap on use, as well as temporarily higher maximum blood charge
I
capacity,
skipped the last
substantially
league,
powering
and
up the
I'm
regular
really
version of the
excited
skill.
for this league.
Path of Exile Crucible introduces 5 other VAAL skills we'll reveal over the next week. VAAL Animate Weapon, VAAL Domination, VAAL Ice Shot, VAAL Rejuvenation Totem, and VAAL Firestorm. This expansion also introduces more than 10 new unique items. There are 3 in particular I'd like to show you today. Blood Price is a unique helmet that has a new effect, reserving enemy maximum life. This does exactly what it implies, causing nearby enemies to start at 92% maximum life. While this increases your clear speed against all enemies, it's especially useful against bosses. The helmet's drawback is that it reduces your maximum life, but provides decent life regeneration and block and stun recovery to counteract this. Tainted Pact is an amulet that causes chaos damage over time to heal you while you're leeching life. While the amulet provides a decent amount of life leech itself, it'll certainly require a few tricks to unlock its full potential. Widow Hail is a unique bow that is different from any other bow in Path of Exile. As a weapon, it does basically no base damage and doesn't grant any stats of its own, but it does dramatically increase the power of mods provided by your quiver. Needless to say, this could produce some pretty ridiculous outcomes with good rare or unique quivers. We'll reveal some of the other new uniques over the coming week. Ruthless is a game mode that we released alongside the Sanctum expansion late last year. It's designed around extreme item scarcity and is challenging because you're constantly behind the item power curve. So far, it has found a very passionate audience of players who love how rewarding item drops feel in such an austere environment. We have some small improvements to Ruthless and Path of Exile Crucible. Firstly, Eternal Orbs are back in Ruthless. These are an extremely powerful currency item that allows you to imprint an item and restore it if you're unhappy with the result of crafting. We disabled these game-wide 7 years ago because they were far too powerful when combined with all of the different crafting options Path of Exile offered at the time. Ruthless does not have the base game's crafting feature set, so we have enabled Eternal Orbs to drop in Ruthless, albeit extremely rarely. Ruthless now has its own set of challenges to complete. Like the ones in early Path of Exile, there are a total of 8, and they're very difficult. Like we've done in the past, we're hosting a boss kill event at the start of the Crucible Challenge League. It'll be held in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found, and will require you to kill both the Uber Searing Exarch and the Uber Eater of Worlds, making it by far the hardest event we have ever run. The first place winner will get to work with our design team to add a new unique item to Path of Exile. They'll also receive a transferable Ultra VIP ticket to ExileCon in July.
It's
If
insane
they
how
aren't
much
able to
content
attend or
grinding
already have a ticket, then they are allowed to sell this one as they see fit. Second and third place finishers will receive a transferable VIP ticket to ExileCon that can also be sold at their discretion.
just gonna be like,
If you'd like to enter the event, just create a character in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found on launch day. Best of luck to everyone. On the weekend of July 29 to 30 New Zealand time, which is July 28 to 29 for much of the rest of the world, we're going to be hosting ExileCon 2023 in Auckland, New Zealand. While tickets to the in-person event are very hard to get, we'll be streaming the entire event for free. At ExileCon, we'll reveal our latest updates on Path of Exile 2, Path of Exile Mobile, and the next Path of Exile 1 expansion. Make a note in your calendar, tell your friends, and don't miss it. The second day of the Path of Exile livestream culminates in a competitive race event between some of Path of Exile's best players. In order to select the 4 competitors, we're going to run qualifier events during the months of April and May. The winner of each event will receive a VIP ExileCon ticket, return flights to Auckland and accommodation, and will compete in the race event live on stage. All 4 qualifiers in the final event will be run on the 3.21 version of Path of Exile, which has received a fair amount of early game balance work that will change the racing meta quite a lot.
You'll be able to read more in the patch notes. Once 3.21 releases next week, you'll be able to solve the new meta, practice hard, compete in the qualifier events, and hopefully win your place on stage in July.
That's so cool.
Alongside Path of Exile Crucible, we're introducing a few new types of microtransactions. An example I wanted to describe today is that of mannequins. These are hideout decorations that you can place to show off sets of microtransactions you have assembled. You can equip them with your spare micros and pose them in various ways. It's also possible to swap your entire outfit with a mannequin's one, which lets you easily store microsets to be retrieved
cool.
later.
Well, yeah, the game is completely free. It's microtransactions supported.
Other new microtransactions coming up include wrapping paper, which
honestly,
lets you
I've
gift
never
wrap
found a
items to hand
game
to other
fairer with
players,
microtransactions.
or even drop in town for random people to pick up.
Never.
Today we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Lithomancer and Enchanter packs.
I
Each
never
tier
needed the
contains
stash
pack's
tabs.
full
I
face
never
value
needed
and
them.
points, alongside
I
several
bought them because
exclusive
the audience was
microtransactions.
bitching at me.
These
I
packs
knew where
are
all
only
my shit
available
was.
for the duration of the Crucible League and will leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic.
I
and do
did.
not
I
affect
knew
your
where my
character's
stuff
power
was.
or
Everyone was
progression in
bitching
any
at
way.
me about it.
The Lithomancer series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
What is that bear?
The Tunnel Bear isn't just adorable. He will also take the place of the Crawler in Delve, lighting your surroundings and laying
You got a
down
little
cables.
bear for delving?
Apparently, this is what happens when your bear gets into a kilo of sulfite. Might explain what happened to Nico. The Ring of the Demon Slayer attempts to exorcise rare and unique demons when you hit them. The souls of defeated demons are banished to the depths
Not a fan
below.
of the stuff that does like on-death effects. There's already enough visual clutter for my little brain.
The ancient stone of the Lithomancer's armor set crumbles when you take damage, revealing the crimson core inside. The stone reforms if you haven't taken damage recently.
That's kind of cool.
A sip from the ancestral granite flask causes a Karui ancestor to appear and surround you in protective wards. The ancestral portal encases you in molten armor when you travel through it.
Talamoana, warrior.
The summoned Karui ancestor rallies you to battle and honestly seems to have an unhealthy obsession with combat.
Go forth and conquer.
Ever want to practice running away from volatiles? The gunpowder foot attachment straps explosives to your legs, dispersing lit gunpowder behind you. Be careful, you can only outrun it for so long before it catches up.
Okay, so now you're just letting people
The
draw
Enchanter Pack
penises.
series
Okay.
also has 6 exclusive microtransactions.
Oh, I like that puppet hand.
Parrot of Exile pet.
That puppet hand is
parrots
cool.
Your Exile. We'll just let it speak for itself.
It would be wrong to do that here.
Wrong. I need more mana.
Pass.
Drinking from the bottled storm jade
Pass.
flask encases you in a surging tornado, churning up the ground in your wake. If you stand perfectly still while wearing the enchanted armor set, it will attract butterflies to flutter around you.
That's
Be
going
careful
to
not
be
to
a
disturb
love-hate thing. I am hard pass on that.
Sick of high-fiving giant purple appendages? The Ritualist's Breach Ring visually transforms breaches you find into occult summoning circles. The Enchanter's Crafting Bench replaces the normal crafting bench in your hideout with a suite of tools fit for a master
Oh, that's
artisan.
awesome.
The various crafting stations burst into life as you use
You guys, if you've not played PoE, you should look at some of the houses
If
people
you've
have made.
ever wanted to remind your character who's really in charge, the Puppeteer's back attachment has you covered. It truly is the sinister presence pulling
Oh,
the
that's
strings.
creepy.
These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase. Purchases like these directly fund the ongoing development
The
of Path of
bear is
Exile
very
1 and 2.
tempting.
Meanwhile, the Forge and Gemling packs leave the store forever at the launch of the Crucible League, so now's your last chance to purchase them.
Already
Thank
got
you
it.
for your continued support. We're about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. After that, we'll post the full patch notes for Path
Already
of
got
Exile
it, mate.
Crucible. As we approach release next week, our community team will post Crucible's challenges, information on how to update
You need
your
cocaine
item
bearer
builders,
parrot?
more skill
Would you
gem
really
details,
have
and
the
information on
parrot?
how to prepare for Crucible's
No
launch.
way would you have the parrot.
On release weekend, we expect to launch the new mystery box and this season's
I think in
Pyrrhic Salt
total,
Pass,
I probably
which can be
spent...
purchased with points and has a new free track available.
Well, we've spent a lot because we
Thanks
bought
for
all the
joining
guild
the stream
upgrades
today
for everybody,
and checking
didn't
out
we?
Path of Exile Crucible. We can't wait to forge some
We had to
powerful weapons
upgrade
with you
the
next
guild
week.
size quite a lot.
The
'cause
Q&A
so many
will
of you are
start
playing.
shortly, so please get your questions ready.
We definitely spent a fair... I think we spent maybe $300, something like that. I bought a little puppy. I bought 2 dogs, actually. I have 2 dogs. Ducks. That everybody kept changing ducks to follow me. Yeah. I've got some cool armors. Well, we bought the bundles so we could get the coins to upgrade everything. But to be clear, nobody else needs to do that. I did that because I was the guild master, so I upgraded the guild and stuff. And it's permanent as well. Our guild holds like, what, 100 people or something? Let me grab a pizza slice. Pizza! $500? Yeah, we spent a lot. Oh, 500 people. Yeah, we got a load of people. Oh, what pizza am I on? It's got chicken tikka, pepperoni, beef, and ham. It's a meat pizza. The last PoE character's name was DuckTales Awoohoo. DuckTales Woohoo! I'd gotta say though, I like this league. It's not overly complex or involved. What's wrong with the chicken tikka pizza? It's a dirty pizza. It's nice, man. It's nice spicy meats. Look, this is the first takeaway I've had in like 6 months. I'm having my meaty pizza. Really? Yeah. I've been pretty good on the diet. A little too much. I said last week, I've been getting super tired a lot. Not getting enough calories in. We had no takeaway in Switzerland? No? If I'm working an event like the Race to World First, I eat the food provided. I'm there to earn as well as work, you know? So yeah, no takeaway there either. Oh, no 6-pack yet. Still got several inches to lose, but... I've lost 8 inches off my waist. It's a lot, but it's also annoying. None of my clothes fit anymore. It's really irritating. Let me show you these shorts. It's ridiculous. These shorts used to fit me, right? I was totally able to wear these without a belt. Climb inside them, man. I could literally disappear inside these shorts. I could literally just disappear inside these. Yeah. America shorts. I actually wore these shorts the last time we had dinner together, Isaac, if you remember. When we had dinner at that Greek place in California. These were the shorts I was wearing. I think I'm wearing these shorts in one of my interviews with Ian. Oh, it's boring though. Dieting is super boring. I'm kind of ready to come to a stop now, and this pizza tastes really good. Really, I have eaten at restaurants. I'm not like Mr. Pure or anything. Roomy. Do I feel better? No. Which is a little annoying. I feel tired, but I think that's just the calorie intake. I feel really tired. A lot. I really struggle now not to nap the moment I stop working. Like, the second I stop doing stuff, I really just want to nap. Like, almost to the point that I feel like I'm passing out sometimes. I'm, like, in a daze. And then it comes back after... And then I'm fine after about 20 minutes. Yeah, I don't nap at all. I haven't really got time to nap. Because usually my schedule is I'll finish here, I'll go be with the kids for a bit, and then I'll come back to work. But when I come out of here, like, stop the stream, and, like, actually the kids are home and I sit down with them, I'm just like... like, my head is, like, swimming, ready for a sleep. I have to nap after food? What kind of food are you eating, Ash, when you need to nap? Any meat in the diet? Yeah. My diet is really boring. It's oats and protein powder in the morning with nut milk. I have that every single morning. And I have 2 whole eggs and 1 egg white on a piece of toast for lunch. You guys have seen that if you're here during the daytime. And then something for dinner, which is always random because I have to make dinner. I make dinner and Emma makes dinner for me and the kids. So that could be anything. That could be I like making these like turkey pita sandwiches, like turkey breast with wholemeal pittas, a little bit of sauce and some salad in them. The kids really like them. And Emma will make us spag balls. No fruits with the oats. No, because I'm in a super rush all the time. I'm always rushing. It's kind of frustrating, but yeah, I'm always rushing. Like today, I did a load of stuff for Emma this morning. We started streaming at, what, 11? All the way till now. And my dinner's gone cold now, but I'll have it after this. Hey, here we go. Ziggy D looking fresh.
G'day, Exiles. Ziggy D here. Welcome back. I'm joined here once again by Chris Wilson. How you going this morning, Chris?
Going well, thanks. Thanks for hosting.
That was a pretty spicy, hot reveal stream. The final one before ExileCon and the last reveal apart from ExileCon's reveal for PoE1 potentially?
Yeah, well, we'll be having, basically, during the keynote for ExileCon, obviously we'll be dumping all the juicy Path of Exile 2 info, but after that we'll have essentially the Path of Exile 1 322 expansion livestream taking place from the main stage there.
The ending of an era. It's kind of bittersweet. A decade of Path of Exile action at this point, coming to a close, but moving into Path of Exile 2, obviously very exciting. So we won't be probing into that too much.
Yeah, it's fine on my end now.
Any reference to Titans in this very early stage of Rayclestian history before now, or is this kind of new ground that
PoE's look and feel too much?
We like to come up with a mixture of taking something that's referenced and then expanding on it. And I don't want to spoil too much of the investigation of where this is referenced in the game, but we recommend looking into the Red Blade Warbands faction. That's a good breadcrumb place to pick up.
The lore experts can begin their investigations there. So the main feature, I think, of Crucible
I have to wonder, like,
the power that it's offering players here. How much power is there in Crucible, and are there any drawbacks to that power?
Are they going to make it more accessible?
You can definitely view this as pretty strict power creep on weapons, let's just say that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there haven't been Path of Exile weapons this powerful before. So you're not sacrificing anything by having a weapon tree on the weapon, it's just purely upside. But many of the individual skills do come with their own downsides, and you can choose whether to allocate those or not. And so on a weapon by weapon and skill by skill basis, you're definitely going to have to make decisions about what's best for your build.
When it comes to designing like power that has drawbacks versus doesn't have drawbacks, how do you decide which route to go?
We feel that having hard decisions about weapons and build choices and skill use is really interesting. It causes you to have to adjust your build around drawbacks. We don't really want to make a game where you linearly just get the ability to kill monsters more quickly without having to think. We like the idea of finding a choice you can make where you're like, like this will increase my power, but I have to work around something else. Like potentially there's a skill that increases your fire damage, but makes it so that you have slightly lower fire resistance. Not a large drawback to work around, but it pauses you for a second and causes you to think, where can I get the resistance elsewhere? Now, I want to emphasize, many of the skills here don't have drawbacks. This isn't like, say, Scourge, where there's a corresponding drawback to every single one. It's just the case that for the powerful ones, we've put drawbacks on them so that there's a decision that you have to make. And it's typically the ones near the end of the trees that have the drawbacks, so they don't really block your choices very much
later in the game. That's nice.
Yeah, it feels like a big difference compared to Scourge in that regard. But I've always thought power creep is good when it's interesting, when it offers you like different decisions and an interesting extra layer of customization. Do you have any more like most ridiculously powerful Crucible trees or nodes that you've seen?
That's how I got involved with PoE. Actually,
there are some pretty cool
I did
combos.
it completely
For
blind,
example,
and it was fine. It was totally fine.
If you found a skill that dramatically increases your cast speed at the cost of lowering your damage, then you may want to use, say, Summon Raging Spirits, because then your increased cast speed means you're casting way more of them, doing a lot more damage, and the decrease to your damage doesn't affect the damage of your Raging Spirits, so in that case you completely bypass that drawback and get something that's better value. We've also got some quite interesting conditional skills. Ones like there's one, I believe, that grants movement speed if your dexterity is lower than 100. And so if you're able to make a build that doesn't have 100 dexterity, like for example you're just pure intelligence or pure strength, then you can easily take advantage of just a free movement speed boost.
You can move on and play something else for the next season. You don't pay for the game. You don't need to.
Could something like this ever go core in Path of Exile, or is it just too powerful? Like it seems, I look at this and I think, no way is that going core.
We intentionally do not have any discussions internally about whether something's going core
until
we let people actually play the league and get some feedback on it, because it's premature if we think, yeah, this can go core and then everyone hates it, or vice versa, then that's an issue. So we throw it out there, see what people think. When we do integrate leagues with the base game, we typically do make changes to make them appropriate for integration, like one of the many topics for this coming year is what are we doing about Sanctum, for example, and certainly there's discussion there about how we would make Sanctum appropriate for base game integration if it is going core.
Some people play it for a month.
With
really, I start to drift out of PoE once we start hitting the slower grind, like hunting
these will go to standard in some capacity. Will they work in standard?
With very low drop rates. That's where I kind of drift out a little bit.
So you can rip them from hardcore to standard right away.
It's going to be good fun.
It's worth noting you can't level them up or allocate nodes any further in standard. Like you probably want to get the tree allocated correctly before you do rep it to standard. But yeah, you can use those skills over there.
I imagine there's a lot of experimentation as well, because you potentially want to, like looking at the end game of this is to level up multiple different weapons, selecting the best nodes, and then combining them together until you get like a blend of your perfect ideal nodes. And I imagine that could take a while to get the perfect one.
Certainly, yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff that can happen that we learnt from recombinators. So there's quite a big grind to get perfect stuff, and then when you're looking at it on uniques, for example, the grind is even larger. Like we're really excited to some extent about how the concept of, let's say you want to have a
this is the stuff that doesn't do it for me. Like farming for maybe months to get one perfect item.
Effort from most
I'm not super interested in that stuff
to achieve that, but
I'm interested in like new silly builds. I treat every season as like, let's try and do something new.
Allocations.
Play around with something
if a skill has been allocated, like as in you've chosen the skill, you've got all the experience towards it, you're gaining the benefit from it and so on, then you can scour it with an orb of scouring. So that will unallocate that last node there. And then for the ones that you're working towards that you haven't allocated yet, you can instead retarget the effects. I won't give anybody the next Crucible encounter you do towards a different node.
We're not going Flicker again. We're not doing that.
Graph up so I can demonstrate it. But essentially, if I'm halfway through leveling up to one of the two choices I have at a certain intersection, and I instead want to work towards the other one, I can just freely swap across. And once it's allocated, I have to use a scour to undo it and get that experience.
I love Flicker, but I understand that it makes people sick.
The nodes available on two-handed weapons.
I get it.
More powerful.
I totally get it.
One-handed weapons. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just doing a quick dev check to make sure I wasn't making stuff up. Nodes on two-handed weapons are more powerful than one-handed weapons. You could think of it as, broadly speaking, if you have a two-handed weapon, you're getting the same rough power that you would from having a one-handed weapon dual-wielded or with a shield.
Certainly makes sense, and that kind of like feeds into the next question. Like,
I don't think PoE. It depends on the build. Like,
a bow is a two-handed, gets that power level.
I'd be surprised if PoE makes you.
We had the choice there of, do we want a bow to be balanced like a one-handed weapon or balanced like a two-handed weapon? And we thought, well, probably balance it like a two-handed weapon and just ignore quivers. It means that we can double down on having powerful bow effects, and players only have to, in that case, craft a tree on one item.
Did you ever feel like Maybe we should give a special exemption to face breakers.
Oh, we got
and
a
similar
PoE2
items that have
trailer.
you not equip a weapon.
What's it say? Mez has got one. Yeah, so they're keeping the same look.
Welcome to Path of Exile 2's second act. As you saw in the trailer, Act 2 is centered around a caravan of Maraketh called the Ardura who live in the Vastiri Desert. You're chasing another caravan from an opposing tribe called the...
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I know it's old, but I can't imagine them wanting to change it graphically too much. Oh, that's so creepy. One of the best
One
things
of the
about
skills
PoE
we're
is the
using here
monsters
is called
that crawl in
Spear
from the
Field, which
side.
creates an area of spears coming out of the ground that impale monsters who walk into them, causing them to bleed. As the monsters move towards you, they take damage, so using your mobility skills as a way to move away from them is a great strategy here.
I wonder if they're going to completely change the leveling process, right? It's the biggest complaint people have, is
I believe
the leveling
in
process.
Path of Exile there isn't a lot of direct difference between swords and axes that would cause there to be many skill
And I get it
differences here, so
completely.
those
Having to
ones are
play
very
through all the
similar,
story
but
every time you want to
we
make a new
have
character
tried to
is
make sure it's all
frustrating.
sensible. You're not going to get stuff on a weapon that's irrelevant to that weapon.
Great. Will that unique Crucible helmet, the Elabin's Visage, just have a mixture of everything, or how does that work?
That one gets shield ones.
Oh, okay. So shield probably, I assume, then has a more defensive-oriented...
Yeah, I believe that it gets
Oh, you
shield
got
ones,
your
but it
drops?
can't
Awesome.
give you like static local block and various other bits and pieces that wouldn't work very well.
Yeah, some new shiny wings for everybody.
Now, on unique items, once you add a Crucible tree to a unique item in the Primeval Remnant map, can you progress the tree and unlock nodes in regular Crucible content encounter, or do you have to keep doing the maps?
You can unlock nodes the regular way. So basically, doing that map, if you get the mod on it that enables you to put a Crucible tree on a unique, and I should add that's a
free
moderately
golden
common
wings.
mod, but certainly requires you to get lucky and get
Hey,
it,
no worries, dude.
then you've kind of unlocked the ability for that unique to then have a tree that's explorable. At that point, you can then just go back to regular content in your regular endgame maps and level it up. It's only when you need to get a second copy of that unique unlocked and or do combining that you need to go back
Would
to
you
the,
like it if you could do maps from
Primeval
level
Remnant
1,
maps.
like really low level
Now,
maps,
viewers are always
and
looking
just get
for
going?
clever ways around the system. I saw one
And you just
that
leveled
was,
through like maps and
if
stuff?
you take a item that already has
I
a
think
Crucible
I would
tree and
prefer that
chance it
now,
into a
yeah.
unique, does that bypass the Primeval map requirement? Or are you locked
Yes,
from doing
it
that?
does.
You could just
It
take a
does.
map route.
Oh, okay, there you go. Chance orbs going up.
Any solution
So
here
you
that
have
involves
things
more
automatically
gambling from the
locked, like
players is
delve and
happy with
heist,
us.
etc., etc.
Okay.
Go shout out work.
Now we have some chat questions on these topics as well. So, Crucible interaction with mirrored and corrupted items. Can you do anything with those, or are they locked out?
Okay, so there's some
Try
fun
to
stuff
delve
you can
into
do in the higher
Devil's
tier
Adventure
version
mode,
of the
yeah.
endgame map,
Like
the one that's
8
really
hours or
hard
4
to
hours,
get.
you know,
And
that's
an
okay.
example here, and we don't want to spoil too much, but an example, I
I
believe,
think it's
is that
because the
there is a
new
mod which
season
enables
starts
you to
and you're
use- is it a
excited
mod
to
or a
play the
base
new
property?
system, yet you kind of start by doing the
Right, a
same
mod on the
thing
map
you've already
item that
done.
enables you
That's-
to
which I totally
interact
get.
with
It
corrupted
doesn't
items, for
feel
example.
new.
And so
you do the
there
same
are
campaign again.
exceptions that you can bypass. I still believe you cannot do anything with mirrored items, right?
No, but if you mirror an item that copies the tree.
Yeah, so mirroring an item does copy the tree, but once you've got the item mirrored, it's unmodifiable.
Okay, will you, this is a question I think for Ruthless. Will you be able to imprint Crucible trees?
Yes, I don't see why
The
not.
glance to the side.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Will Dancing Dervish benefit from the
maybe?
passive tree while the item is disabled? This is kind of feeds into questions like about energy blades
Maybe?
and things like that as
At least
well.
we
where
see
you've
it
got
starts,
weird
you see how it works at the
contextual
start.
changes in how a
Yeah, I
weapon
know,
is
but like,
used and classified.
if you've already done the
We
campaign
certainly
multiple
had
times,
bugs
you could
related
probably
to
pick it
putting
up
energy,
in a low
energy
level
blades in the
leveling
Crucible.
map, right?
That was a fun time. Yeah, the answer-
Always.
it was
To figure it
Always.
out. It's no, I mean, are maps particularly different than doing the campaign
We'll have to look into
zones?
it. I mean, I'm certain the QA team have gone through everything and fixed it all, but that wasn't percolated up to me. But we'll make sure the
I don't think
sensible
so.
outcome applies.
Talking now about trade a bit, how will trading items with
You'd have to
Crucible
have
trees
leveling
work?
maps,
Will you be able
right?
to
That's
search
what
for
you need. You
nodes
need,
on the
like,
trade site?
Different
We are
version
trying
of
to
maps
get that
for leveling.
functionality, but it's worth noting the way that this works is the trade site is put together by one of our staff members who's very busy, and he only gets the copy of the league to go and do the trade site stuff like yesterday kind of situation.
I don't
So
think you can base
he
it
has
on like
week
a
to
level
get,
15 map or
to
whatever.
get,
That's not what you're going to
Crucible
level in
support
from
working,
level
and
1,
so
you know what I mean?
we're working on it. It's difficult in this case. We normally can easily within a week sort out any itemization stuff that came from a league, and in this case it's quite complicated, as you can imagine. So we have no promises there, but yeah, of course we wanted to work on the trade site, And it's worth noting we do have an API, so if the public want to take the API and implement it better than us or faster than us, they're welcome to do so. But in the meantime, yeah, we'll try to get it up, and we want it so that people can easily identify certain nodes and trade for the items. And my expectation is that it will probably be straightforward to find items with a specific node, but doing complicated searches involving combinations of nodes and other stuff will certainly not be possible initially. And so I think that the worst case scenario is players are going to be able to find a bunch of items with a node that they're looking for and then manually examine them to work out which one they actually want to trade for. And that's not a terrible compromise. In fact, it's personally how I prefer it to work, so the trade is a bit sticky.
I know.
Okay, so you will be able to
That
trade
poor
and search
developer,
out
though,
specific things.
I imagine this is
That's
quite the
cool.
nightmare on the web dev front, but I hope they take our energy and Path of Building also take our energy. Now, magmatic ore was something that was kind of just subtly referenced in there. It was said to be a way of having tradable, itemized Crucible tree experiences. Hilarious comment. Can you tell us anything more about what these are and what they do?
Right, so it's Crucible tree experience
could just unlock
rather
a
than
weapons tree, right?
experiences, which means you gain experience for the tree that you've got. So you consume the magmatic ore, and it levels up your item as though you'd done encounters. And so it's worth noting, this is not meant to be the efficient way to level up items, right? It's certainly not the case that people are going to bypass the encounters and just go and trade for these and they never have to actually play. This is a really inefficient way of doing it, but it is possible. If you're currency rich and time poor and need to find a way to get that last bit of experience, then this is a way to do that. It's kind of like a faceter's lens being a single use item that grants the experience. And I suspect that, you know, it's obviously going to be priced in the economy based on how useful it is, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be the primary way that you level these items up.
Poor.
Right,
All right, let's leave it there.
I mean,
I want to go
I
have
feel
my
like
pizza. But yeah, if
there's a
you're a
way
new
of
player, you've not tried
efficiently
PoE, we'll be
playing the
playing
game
it
by
when it
not
comes
playing
out,
the game.
and
Some
we
of
have a
them figure
guild
it
and
out.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
dangerous
newbie
for us to add, but
welcome,
we
because
do
a lot of people
like the idea
don't
of a
play
limited amount of
PoE
tradability here.
because
And
they
there's
look
various
at the
ways to
talent
get it
tree
as
and
well,
they
which
shit
is interesting.
themselves.
Like there's cell nodes
You
on the
don't need
trees
to
as
worry
well,
about
the
that.
ones that you can,
It's fine.
bend.
You can
Yeah,
come
actually
over
get
and
some.
chill. It'll be all
There's
good.
mods on the
There'll be
maps,
people
and
around. You know,
it-
they'll be crawling
it helps
around.
a bit
So
because
yeah,
when
if
we
you
were
look at the
designing
tree,
the
you're just
endgame
like,
map, we didn't want the
I don't know what's
individual
going
monsters
on.
you're fighting there to
But I'd
work
still
towards
recommend
leveling
looking up
a
some
Crucible
builds.
item when you're already expected to bring
All the
multiple
like
Crucible items
dedicated
with you in
PoE
order to
content
combine the trees
creators
together.
and the guide people
Right.
will be making builds now
Those
because
nodes that allow
they
you
could
to
do it
vendor
early.
items for different rewards.
What's she
It's
up
a
to in
clever
there?
solution to the problem of
Being
why
suspicious.
engage
But I'm
with
gonna go have
mechanics
some
regarding an
dinner.
item that you actively
So
wanna
be
forge
awesome,
right now.
everybody. Have a
So
great
how
day.
often do you
Bring
find
Wing
these
2
nodes,
of
and are they
Guild
always
Wars will be
substantial
tomorrow.
rewards, or are they